Hello everybody, it's September 29th. This is an asynchronous lesson on finding the slope between 2 points. The slope between 2 points is always the change in y over the change in x, or delta y over delta x. On a graph, we can see that if we have 2 points, I can look for how much the y is changing, it's going up or down, and then I can see how much the x is changing, going over to the right or left. On a table, I can check the points, and I can check for the change in y, how much is added from one y to get to the next. And the same with the x's, how much is added or subtracted from one x to get to the next. In the equation, the slope is the value in front of the x, since the change happens again for each x, y is changing. So then the slope is that ratio, and the change in y goes on top, because equations are always the story of y, my dependent variable. It's what I'm interested in. When I'm looking through the slope of a line, if I'm just given 2 points, there are kind of 3 distinct methods I can use. The first is a graph, and the first step would be for a graph. If I'm looking to find the line through the points 4, 1, and 2, 5, is make a coordinate plane. These are both positive, so I just made quadrant 1. Graph the points. So I went over 2, up 5, and then I went over 4, up 1, and I've got my 2 points. I'll go ahead and draw the line, since what I'm looking for is the slope of that line. Next, I'm going to find the changes. So I'll start with the point on the left, since slope dude always goes from left to right. It'll give me a good idea of if my slope is negative or positive. And I see, to get to that point, I would go straight down 4. So my delta y, or change in y, is -4. My delta x is +2, or over 2. And next, I'm going to divide. So here, my y change always goes on top. So -4 divided by 2 is -2. Let's do it again, and let's look now at another method. This is a table. So if you like looking at tables instead of making a graph, you can first make a table. So I put my points in. The first point, 4, 1, goes in there, x, y, and then the other point, 2, 5, goes in there. Now I'm going to look for the changes. My changes, I'm looking for what value is either added or subtracted to get from one to the next. I'll do y first, delta y first. So from 1 to 5, I'd have to add 4. For delta x, from 4 to 2, I'd have to subtract 2. So there's my 2 changes. Now I divide. Delta y divided by delta x, change in y divided by change in x, and 4 divided by -2 is -2. The last method is really a formula. And some of you may have learned this before, and if you like it, that's fine. If you don't like the formula, I will encourage you to use one of those other 2 methods, but it's really your choice. The first thing, when you have a formula, the formula for finding the slope between 2 points is really change is found by subtracting. So I subtract the y coordinates, and on the bottom I subtract the x coordinates. It is really the same as those other 2 methods, but it just looks different, and this is more of a formula method. But so now I subtract. I'll subtract, and I'm going to substitute them in. So the y coordinates are 5 and 1, so I do 5 minus 1. And the x coordinates are 2 and 4, so that's 2 minus 4. So then when I simplify it, I get that same ratio, 4 divided by -2, and that equals -2. So in some ways, this is very similar as the other 2 methods, but it is a little different because it's a formula, and some of you may have seen this. All right, good luck, everybody, and we'll talk more about slope.